Welcome back to another episode. In this episode, we are going to discuss something very underrated in the real estate market. We generally talk about buying, selling, but one aspect of real estate that nobody really talks about and is really underrated is the leasing element. Today, we have Mr. Tanuj, who is the head of leasing at FairFox IF Noida. We are going to discuss and dive deep, understand what leasing is and how much important it has in terms of real estate market and the city itself. There, Mr. Tanuj, thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you so much.
Privileged to have you. And
Thank you so much. Pleasure is all mine.
this is going to be a conversation. We are going to have fun. It is about making sure that everyone is aware of what leasing is. Generally, we all are busy talking about buying, selling. ये माल इतना बिक गया, ये इतना sold हो गया.
Ji.
What nobody is talking about is कि what is the success ratio? What is the absorption rate? Do we have brands coming in the market? So these are the questions that we'll be discussing. So
We are good to answer that.
yeah.
See, leasing is a very different ballgame altogether. A developer buy the land, they do the construction, the sales team join them, they start doing the selling. There's the various parameters a sales force team used to implement into the market. Somebody comes with the pure selling model, somebody comes with the return model, somebody with a lease guarantee model. When it comes to the leasing is something which is a pain area or is a gain area of any of the developments happening so far all across the globe. Leasing is simultaneously a benchmark for any of the investor whosoever it buys. Currently, when we talk about Noida has seen a long time involvement in building the spaces altogether. Either it is IT business park, either it is residential, either it is commercial, either it is warehouses, either it is industrials. Everybody is now all set to go for a leasing. Faster GDP of Noida, lot of organizations coming to the Noida, lot of manufacturing set up into the Noida. Planned. Moreover, Noida is a planned city. Warehouses has a different sectors altogether. Outskirts of Noida, Greater Noida, only the warehouses are set up there. Just because of the planned city, the organization have a better solution in terms of running the business.
Correct.
So Noida, and specifically Noida being as a number one in infrastructure, you see the express highways, you see the sector road, you see the internal roads. This is what the organization, the manufacturings or the IT offices or a residential is looking for. So one perspective of getting the leasing done here in Noida is on a win-win situation when it comes to giving them the space. So first of all, leasing is completely different from a sales perspective. You sell a price and leasing comes in a very different parameters. The prices of sale does not match or does not suffix what leasing want to have. Leasing is something where a corporate comes in, they have a few parameters, the absorption rate, the footfall, the connectivity, the internal and the external sources where company needs infrastructure, a better return on investments, a good price, a good infrastructure, very good building. Building need to have a high-end services to accommodate all the clients as per their need basis. So this is what the leasing, these are certain parameters which add on into the infrastructure, and then and there when everything is ready, the leasing starts, right? So the leasing is something, an XYZ company comes in and they're looking for a space. So the volume and the value, demand and the supply, both parameter has to be matched up.
Okay.
Anything which get into a different zone, the leasing always goes slow. In case if it is a developed part, the leasing goes high. Depend upon, so there could be a lot of difference between a developed sectors where an infrastructure is ready but services are not there, leasing will not happen. It is under the development, services are good, futuristic option, corporates will come in and they will block these spaces. So this is what it is going on.
So, like, now this is a very good start to the conversation. A lot of people don't even understand what leasing is. Primarily, we have been taught about buying a space, selling a space. What we don't really talk about, and nobody really puts enough attention on the topic, is leasing. So, I want you to simplify the term and tell us exactly what leasing is, and precisely if you can simplify the importance of leasing in real estate. This is to our audience who are not experts in real estate. They put their money and they hope that the money grows. This
Correct.
is for them. If you could simplify in the simplest possible words.
See, leasing is the only vertical in real estate which go very straight. It has a process. For example, in sales, any of the developer comes in with a project, they come, they plan the sales, they do the sales planning, they create certain areas for an office space, certain areas and services to the retail spaces, certain areas for the services. So this make a combination of creating a project. Whereas leasing works in a very different fashion. Uh, Overall, as you said, the investors is only known about the sellings, but overall, investor at the end of the day, they want to have something from that property, right? There are three categories of the investments. One person will enter and exit in the start of the model. The another is they want to enter, but they hold till the possession comes in. And the third and the most valuable thing is the investor which book, which hold and wait for a leasing perspective. Whosoever, the primary investor or a secondary investor, after a new exits and entries of a new investors, they always see that that area has to be leased out. So that leasing is somewhere, it's a need basis analysis. Every project, there are left and right, you will see on the expressway, there's a lot of project coming up. You will see central Noida, there are a lot of project comes up. But every market has a different domain altogether. Central Noida is more focused on retail at the moment.
Correct.
Right? The expressway, right hand side is more on the IT spaces. The left hand side is IT and the retail spaces. Right? So the demand and supply has been designed in such a manner that it should match the investors among the residential force which is residing at the moment. So when we say investor perspective, I just want to tell them that, once you buy, leasing always go slow in terms of, you know, bridging those filling gaps, in terms of filling the spaces. It's not like that. So, you do sales, you book that space and you are done. But leasing is something, it start when the possession is coming in. It will take a long time to make a leasing market understand that this is the project, this is where the focus is, this is what the USPs of that project, why corporate should come to have their office at this location. And this is the entire exercise which go from the first day and it will take probably 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, or a big spaces may take 2 years time. So this is how the leasing goes on.
Sir, I mean, a good explanation to this very, wide question. But the problem is now, if you see a lot of projects coming in and they come up with a brand name and saying that we have signed an LOI from the very first day, they launch a project and then say we have already signed a LOI with a brand or an organization who will be taking our space. My counter question to you is, sir, how are these brands really coming up with these names? Because as you said, it's a very long term process. It takes time to convince the market first and then the brand later.
Correct.
That we are a good developer, we have a decent space, you can
Correct.
use this. So what is that, sir? On the very first day, these brands use LOI.
All right. So just to answer your question, there are two categories which is running parallel into the market. One is the developer who are lease-based model and they don't sell it into the market, right? There are very, very few players in the market who make the asset, who hold the assets and they only lease the product. So normally when it comes to the corporate leasing or any of the retail leasing, their first perspective is we will go to that developer which only do the leasing model. They are not the strata selling model because there are a lot of, you know, a lot of process which delays in terms of strata selling, and it is a very warm initiation and closing the deal only with the leasing developers because that's only the one landowner. That's only the one person, one spot where you're going to speak to them. You finalize the design, you finalize the space, and you close that deal. So that one owner is doing the leasing out.
Yes.
But normally 90% projects are the sale based model.
Right.
You have 100 of investors out there. So when any of the brands comes in, they always ask first question, is it a strata selling property? So their benchmark of 100% reduced to 50%. They always want that the leasing should be done with one single spot.
Correct.
Right? So that is why what we have done in Eon is we have started taking the consent from the investors at the time of booking. From that consent, what did happen that, a single spot will become the developer. And for a brand, it become very, very easy to do the discussion on spaces with the developer only. The developer here will always take care of their investors in terms of the price what they have sold, the area what they have sold. They completely encircle the entire investments, make a one big flow plate, and then represent it to the corporates. And this make more easy for a leasing person or a corporate or a retail brand to decide as to whether we should be here or whether we should not be here.
Right. So that's a fair question. So just to simplify, generally brands prefer where the developer is not selling the property. He or she is more focused on leasing it out. So the brands get to talk to one individual, one person, one brand. They do not have to go to multiple stakeholders and ask if you are willing to give the
Correct.
space to us.
Correct.
Here, what you have done is you have sold the property, you have sold the inventory to multiple investors, but at the same time, you've taken the consent that we will be leasing, renting your property on behalf of you.
Correct.
So they have given you the consent, fine, that you manage
Right.
the risk.
Correct.
So now let's dive into the market, sir. So first of all, I would like to know your perception of the Noida market in terms of leasing. Then I will share mine as well. I would like to know exactly what do you think, how the Noida market is currently in terms of leasing, how the brands see us, and how organizations are looking at us as the future. What is the perception in the leasing market, sir, of Noida?
See, when we say as a Noida market, Noida is a very promising market.
Okay.
It took long battle for Noida to come up at this stage. Infrastructure was always a priority of Noida at the moment. Still, they are number one in terms of expressways you talk about. They are on the world map. These are one of the best, expressways to talk about. The second USP of Noida is they have a bigger IT parks in comparison to Gurgaon, in comparison to any other state. Noida is a bigger chunk market.
When you say IT park, you mean to say a bigger IT lands.
Bigger IT land
Right,
park.
right.
For example, FairFox Eon is on 13.5 acres.
Right, sir.
So 13.5 acres is approximately 2.2 million square feet of a development. So when it is 2.2 million of a square feet of a development, so I think the kind of organization we are building up in India, more startups is coming. So this is something, a win-win situation for any of the developer who is coming up with a very decent and a large IT business parks. They are giving a scope to everyone to be a part of that campus. Small offices are always a major take-up in comparison to the large space. Large space always come up with, a profile like 50,000 square feet, 1 lakh square feet, 2 lakh square feet, 3 lakh square feet. But it all depends upon how big is the business park.
Right, sir.
Right? So the bigger business park, the bigger clients are there. So that's what. Coming to your second point, Noida, in last 1 year, they have closed almost 35 lakh square feet of an office space. 3.5 million square feet for last quarter. Before that, it was 2.1 million square feet. Before that, it was 1.1. After COVID, so this is one parameter. After COVID, then the co-work and the managed office space players comes in. They have taken the major turn in terms of occupying the office spaces where the business model for entire office organization has changed. Work from home, coming back to the office, not for a long lease. And then, there are a lot of other perspective where they have distributed the population state-wise and they've made that state or that area to work from that managed office spaces.
Correct.
So that's how, these spaces have grown up.
Right.
So last 2 years, it was a good time for Noida. You talk about any of the development, you talk about data center, it's coming up. You talk about the big corporates, they are coming up. After announcing of Zavers, there's a lot of IT, there are a lot of IT security, there are a lot of airways, there are a lot of software developments, there are a lot of manufacturing setups. They all are coming to Noida. The small spaces to large space take up is easy here. Demand and supply is matching as per their requirements. That's how it.
Following up again, the last point you mentioned, demand and supply. Uh, I don't know. We have sold how many lakhs of square feet in office spaces, details. One question that we constantly get is that we're fair enough. We are buying this. We are making the investment. That's all good. We will eventually make the return in the long term in terms of appreciation. But there are hundreds of projects, coming up, already delivered. The one question is, do you think all these spaces will be leased, will be rented? And this is a very, very important question as well, because the question is like there are thousands and lakhs of offices, inventories available in the market.
Correct.
Why will your property specifically get leased out?
See, I do understand there is a lot of gaps in real estate market at the moment. The land has become costly.
Yes.
The construction cost has become costly.
Yes.
Right. So this is one which built up the project.
That's it.
So once these two things are costly, the selling price is moreover on a high price point, right? But this is one segment. The second segment is the consumer. The consumer is, just because there's a lot of demand and supply in Noida, they have a fair chance to negotiate better in terms of getting the space. Few takers, a good few takers, but just because of the high demand and supply, they always choose the better infrastructure. Right. Pricing is always there. Infrastructure is there. Any of the IT business park is not about taking the spaces. It's all about the technical specification of that building. For example, a simple thing for an investor, it is like shisha lag raha hai, a facade is there, but when corporate comes in, that facade has a value. It has a glass value. It has a noise value. It has everything. So, believing only into the infrastructure as an RCC or an MS structure, comparison to what corporates look forward, there's a lot of difference. So coming to your question, there's a lot of developers are there which have not initiated that brainstorm on the technical specification of IT buildings. Eon has taken that initiative from the cooling perspective, from the shadow perspective, from the space allocation, from the connectivity process, from the designing of the campus, from the perspective of office spaces volume versus a hybrid retail spaces volume, which will match on the requirement of an IT space. So that's the win-win situation for FairFox here. The third point is why the corporate should come in here or why a retail should come in here. So the retail, what we have done a zoning with them for the retail brand, it's something different from the retail perspective. See, for example, for an investor, retail is retail. Right? Ek pizza hut aa jayega. बर्गर आ जाएगा, बैंक आ जाएगा, या फिर मेरे पास एक रेस्टोरेंट आ जाएगा, कॉफी शॉप आ जाएगा। एक वही पर्सपेक्टिव होता है रिटेल का। बट and I'm so I've done so much of brainstorming in bringing those retail brands not just as in retail but as an IT. So IT consumables are there, the telecoms are there with us. So we have a plug and play cafe. So we have a resto bars. We have a wine and cheese clubhouse, a town hall created for a corporates for their corporate meets.
Right.
So we have designed a food court in a manner that it should suffix the IT in comparison to the retail, because retail we are already giving a lot of things. We're giving them the cafes, we're giving them the QSRs, we're giving them the anchor spaces.
Right.
But this food court is only been designed for an IT people,
Right.
where any of the corporate will come and they always ask what my employee going to have it,
Right.
right? Second zoning we have done as in the corporate apparels segments, being working for 8 hours, 10 hours in the office, suddenly we have to go somewhere. So the nearest benchmark is the sector 18 of Noida,
Yeah.
right? So we have created something where people should, I want to buy a casual shirt, that's downstairs. I want to have my corporate suits, that's downstairs. Even we have done zoning for a female segment also, female consumers also, where they're going to have a corporate, that beauty and wellness for them. We have a corporate kind of jewelry segments for them. We have done a special fitness zone for them.
Wow.
Right? Where that's only been supporting to the corporates gentry. So that's how we are doing a zoning for them.
Right.
So this will make FairFox Leon a win-win perspective in comparison to any of an IT bug which only look retail as a retail.
Right.
So that's what.
So that is about FairFox in general, the group, which is very important for me as well as my investors and invested a lot of money here. But what about the market, sir? Do you think that there is a decent match of the inventories available and brands approaching these inventories?
See, there is this question is not about the brand approach versus the space what we do have. There are a lot of other perspective also which investors should know.
Okay.
And they should get ready, because what happened, when you start selling into the market, you're only selling the space.
Right.
And always as a salesperson is like, this is the bracket, this is the discount, and this is what the benefit of the project, and you are done. Right? But then later on, the customer, when it comes onto the possession, the customer come back to the leasing department and always ask for, sir, leasing kab ho raha? तो जब वो क्वेश्चन आता है कि लीजिंग कब हो रहा है, तो उसमें फिर उनके सामने पर्सपेक्टिव रखे जाते हैं, सर एक ये ब्रांड है, ये वर्टिकल फूड से है, लेकिन इसको एक कैपेक्स वैल्यू चाहिए. So the capex means interiors. So when they have done the selling, when they have bought the space, they have never considered that capex value.
Correct. That's
correct. So interior value, I mean, as in sales professional, you always have to tell the customer that after COVID, the time has changed. Every brand, whosoever want to come, they will come. But what they want is an additional investment of 5 to 7% of a capital, what they are looking forward from you. So the retail capex starts from 3,500 rupees per square feet on carpet to 10,000 rupees per square feet carpet on a resto bar, a kind of a fine dining restaurants.
my God.
Right? The return, absolutely, for a customer is like a return on investment only onto the buying. But running a show, you're creating a shift, but you are not making a machine ready. So it will not run. Right? So this is the kind of an equipment you always require for. So return versus the expectation is a two big things, a big challenge at the moment, where we are working on it. We are working on certain parameter where we are negotiating with the branch. We are educating our investors, and plus there is a long-term planning on that, which can create a win-win situation for all.
Correct.
Right? So you enter while buying, you should be ready for a capex also.
Right, right. So this is a very important takeaway that once you buy a property and maybe at that time the sales professional was not informed, let's say by the management, there will be additional capex, but anyone who's buying a commercial space, office space, or retail should know that there can be a capex that maybe may get demanded by the developer at the time of possession or at the time of
Correct.
brand coming in. Fair enough, sir. Now talking about the absorption rate in general, sir. Like, what is the absorption rate in Noida? Is it, do we have, let's say there are, just to put it very simple, if there are 100 inventories available, first let's talk about the office uh, investments, real estate. What is the absorption rate? If we have, let's say, 100 units available, how many of them are getting really rented out? If I know it's a very may not be a very technical question to ask, but I want to simplify for my viewers.
Are working on 100 units only. For us as a developer, and for us as in for the investor. So we are almost sitting on a position for first start, which will come in between December 2024 to April 2025.
Correct.
And leasing always take a long-term time. So what we have planned is in case if it is 100 units, so we are working for 100 units.
Okay.
So we have planned for a managed office players. We are planning for a small office players. We are also planning for zonal offices for a lot of corporates.
Okay.
It's there into the market. We are reaching the corporates out there, and we are expecting that at least from 100 units, that 50% occupancy should be there at the time of possession.
Wow, that's a very good number. And I also think that the Noida in general, the market in, I think it has an absorption rate of 50%, market in general as well.
See, when I say absorption rate into the Noida market, the kind of zoning or the site planning being done by the Noida authority, there's a lot of volume.
Right.
The volume being designed in a very different manner. You know, a small 2,000-meter plot is covering almost 70,000 square feet, right? But that 70,000 square feet, client will not come into that area,
Right.
right? It is only one individual who want to take one total space. That's one thing.
Right.
But almost they are also doing the same kind of a selling as in, the flow wise and all.
Right.
But normally, if you talk about a 70,000 square feet take up from any of one corporate, they will always come to an IT business park because the kind of services and the kind of infra they want, it will only happen and they will only have it in the IT business.
Right.
So the absorption rate in comparison to the bigger space and the small space, bigger space has more take up.
Yes, that's a very, now this is a very good insight, sir. So let's say when you say bigger space, let's say we have a 13-acre corporate, 14 approximately. Now the question for the investors is, should I, if I am a investor and I want to buy an office space, should I buy an office space in a small property, let's say 1 acre, 2 acre, or should I buy an office space in a bigger corporate park, 15 acres, 20?
See, if you say technically in Noida, any of the space which is more than 5 acres, they are only eligible to sell the smaller office spaces,
Okay, that's a very good insight. So,
right?
yeah.
So any of the project which is less than 5 acre, Noida authority will not allow them to sell it on, in terms of a small offices,
Correct.
right? So that's one. Second, then the consumer have or the investor do have only option to go on those project which is 5 acre plus. So that's how it is happening, Aro.
Correct. Perfect. Perfect. Now, sir, something that a lot of people don't understand. Initially, when a brand really comes in, when as a developer, you give a minimum guarantee that in first 3 years you will get this, and all of a sudden investors are like, this is not even matching the FD returns. You know, this
Correct.
is less than
Correct.
6%.
Correct.
I want you to tell us and explain us why developers or brands do not pay initially for the 3 years, because they want to see how the market really goes. There's this location, how the location will approach, and all of
Correct.
that. If you can explain why you will not make money post your possession for next 3 years as a investor, that is very important. I want you to share with us.
See, it's a principle agreed terms between all the brands,
Right.
right? Just to inform the investor is like any of the retail when you start working with them, the initial 1.5 year is too crucial. It's a new campus, number one.
Correct.
Right? So new campus need to be filled up.
Right.
So they are here to do the business.
Correct.
Correct. So unless and until there is no footfall, they need also they will wait for the supply, right? So they also need the breathing space,
Right.
right?
They want to minimize
Their recurring cost in comparison to what. So that is why maximum brands, retail brands specifically, they always prefer to have first year as an MG, second year as in they marginalize the MG and do the minimum guarantee. From that second year minimum guarantee, the third year they will take on a stake that now I am established, and then they take it forward. So it is a very generic rule.
Yeah.
Wherever you go, the retail start from 3.5% return, and by the end of 3 years, you will go by 5.5 to 6, 6.5. 6.5 is a good return altogether.
It's a decent return.
It's a decent return in retails. So when we say comparison to the residential yielding and to the return of a corporate or a retail is better in terms of the investments. So residential has their own perspective, their appreciation go very slow, 1% of the return comes in. But whereas the corporate or a retail, they always move like a growth factor.
Right.
So the starting always retail is from 3, 3.5. As soon as the campus start filling it up, the return goes high and the investors go
Right.
into the benefit.
It's a brilliant insight. Now, I want to talk about people who are getting so carried away with this 12% annual return thing that I'm sure that you see all the time. New developer comes in, they come up with a promise that will give you 12% return. You know, uh, you put it 1 CR and we'll give you 1 lakh rupee rent
Right,
for every month.
right,
This 12% return to me as a consultant, I have worked really hard for last 9 years in the industry. It's difficult to fathom because I do all the maths. It is literally impossible to generate 12% ROI in terms of rental yield, right, sir?
absolutely.
And then you want to generate appreciation as well. So if I add 6% as the inflation, let's say, so 6% inflation and let's say 6% property appreciation, 12% rental yield, that is 18% ROI. Why the hell will I will put money anywhere else in the world than in real estate? I want you to tell us that to how difficult it is to generate 12% rental yield in a commercial property.
See, I tell you very decent example, not to quote anybody's home.
Please.
There's a lot of developers, they are quoting 12% assured return.
Yeah.
And then they call it as in debt-free organizations.
Right.
There is no banking on that organization. So in my preview, it is like they are 100% a debt company where they're using a public money. If they go to the bank will charge 18% interest on the loan what they are doing it. Rather to save that 6%, they pass on the same amount, they sell it at a higher price, recalculate that amount on a 12% return on an annual basis, and send it back that money back to them.
So can you explain this with a number? Like let's say a property was sold at 1 CR. If you can explain in a number.
See, for example, the property tag of selling is once here, all right? But on an actual basis, the developer know that this property is not more than 80 lakh. So that 20 lakh upper cap, they add on to this price, they calculate the interest, and they pass it on the same amount to the investors. So the original price versus the assured return price is something very different. So when you go to the developer and ask him, मुझे 12% assured return नहीं चाहिए, then they will come back to you and they say, कि sir, okay. So what you do is, अगर return नहीं चाहिए, you less that 12% and give it to me. They calculate the NPV and then they go back and they say, this is the best price what you can get from us is 85, 86 lakh rupees. So that's the catch.
So a short return is something that we all understand that the developer will take your money and will give it to you. Same like you mentioned something very important that they use it so that they don't have to take money from the bank. Now, I have not heard this. Can you explain us? One, people think AR इसलिए यूज किया जाता है ताकि आसानी हो उस प्रोडक्ट को सेल करने में. But you mentioned something very insightful as well. If you can tell us why do really developers are getting carried away with AR or why they are coming up with AR?
See, इन्वेस्टर्स का बड़ा सिंपल सा पोर्टफोलियो है. they have a hard-earned money. The investment size in comparison to age has gone down, where the people at the age of 55 to 60 used to invest 10, 12 years back. Now, the people who are doing in investments are 25 years of an age,
Yes.
right? So that age breakdown is also there just because the earning capacity has gone in an inclination way.
Right.
Second, the medium category, the investor lobby who want to invest maximum and specifically in real estate is because of the assured return, because the developer design a product in a way that, it is less of the amount and you get a real estate. Everybody has a passion to buy a real estate, right? So एक इन्वेस्टर को ये लगता है यार 30 लाख रुपए में मेरे को एक यार ऑफिस मिल जाएगा यार, यू नो बट उसको बट उस 30 लाख को कैरी करने के लिए, एंड फॉर एग्जांपल कोई सेल्फ यूज का भी उसमें से फ्लोर लेता या स्पेस लेता है, तो उसको जब लेना होता है तब उसको पता लगता है यार 30 लाख नहीं है, इट इज इससे अच्छा तो मैं ट्रेड कर लेता, ये मेरा सेल्फ यूज का प्रोडक्ट है, क्यों? क्योंकि मुझे कैम भी देना है, मेरे को उसको रन भी करना है, मुझे मेंटेन भी करना है। सो वहां पे एक उस इन्वेस्टर का ब्लॉक आ जाता, फिर वो बोलता है यार ये तो नहीं बनेगा, लेट्स मूव टू द अनदर वन। दैट्स हाउ द ट्रेंड मूव्स इन,
Yeah.
राइट? बट इन्वेस्टर जो होता है जिसको एश्योर्ड रिटर्न चाहिए, वो दो कंपैरिजन को बड़े आसानी से कर लेता है। वन, बैंक की एफडी मेरी 5%, 5.5% है, मुझे 12% मिल रहा है, राइट? मेरे लिए ये बेटर ऑप्शन है। लेकिन वो बेटर ऑप्शन में साबित वो सही तब होता है जब कोई डेवलपर डिलीवर नहीं करता और ये सोचता है यार 12% के चक्कर में फंस गया, अगर यही 6% की एफडी मैंने 4 साल कराई होती तो एटलीस्ट मुझे डबल मिल जाता,
हाँ, correct.
राइट? सो देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ इकोसिस्टम, एक डेवलपर ने नहीं डिलीवर किया ड्यू टू सो मेनी रीजंस, वहां पे इन्वेस्टर का लॉस है। एक इन्वेस्टर को वो प्रॉपर्टी मिल गई विद एश्योर्ड रिटर्न, जहां पे डेवलपर बाद की रिटर्न्स को स्टॉप कर देता है और उनको एक मार्जिनलाइज वे में प्रॉफिट दिखा के बैठ जाता है। दैट इज ओके ओके। बट वहां पे जाके जब कस्टमर को खुद लीजिंग करनी पड़ती है, तो उसे पता लगता है कि दिस इज अ वेरी डिफरेंट बॉल गेम ऑल टुगेदर। यहाँ पे मुझे पैसा और खर्च करना पड़ेगा। सो ये बहुत सारी educational reforms for real estate investors हैं, where they should understand that real estate is not only buying the space,
Yeah.
it is to running that space
That's
also.
right.
Tomorrow you can have, you bought it for 7,000 rupees and then you sell it for 9,000 rupees, 2,000 square feet per square feet, a profit margin in a span of 5 years. If you recalculate, go back to your calculation, you will find that it is not 2,000. It was only 1,000 or approximately 700-800 rupees, which will, you know, take you back to the investment कि यार कहीं तो कुछ प्रॉब्लम आ गया
Correct.
या कोई कोई कुछ गैप आ गया, so that they need to understand.
Either in real estate, something that I have now understood as an investor and as a consultant as well, either we underestimate real estate or we overestimate real
Yes,
estate.
absolutely.
We never see the market like the way we see mutual funds, we see FDs, we see equity. We never overestimate or underestimate. We see them as an investment instrument. Here we either overvalue them or we undervalue them.
See, real estate or any of the business is not working on a rocket science,
Right.
right?
Right.
It has a pace of time.
Intrinsic value to it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Plus, designing a building to delivering a building is also a challenge. You know, there could be an external threats, there could be an internal threats, but developer always try to safeguard the investor money out of it, right? So just to safeguard the interest of the investor, uh, leasing is the only channel where you safeguard the investor's life for a long perspective.
Correct.
You know, enjoy the client benefit, enjoy the client orientation, enjoy the capital gain, enjoy the appreciation. Today he buy, tomorrow they can go for a pre-leased option. The pre-leased option is still very underrated segment in real estate, which people or investor does not know much the benefit out of it, right? Then, the ROI calculation should not be for a short span.
Yes, that's very important.
Right? You should, in case if you have bought the real estate space, then it should be from the possession to the next 5 years. then only you will reap the benefit. Else you always curve in between यार मुझे 3% ही मिला, मुझे brokerage भी देना पड़ गया, मुझे services charges भी देने पड़ गए, मुझे transfer भी देना पड़ गया, मुझे कोई advance rentals की securities वापस करनी है, ये so there are a lot of other parameters to take care of this.
Now, this could be a very important question as well, because I want to tell my audience that what are the set of parameters brands have when they decide that they're going to take a space, let's say X in XYZ building.
So there are for a retail brand, there is only one parameter what they look forward to. Retail always work on a footfall. For example, any of the apparel store or anchor store of approximately 10,000 square feet, they want to have a footfall of at least 7 to 10,000 people per day, right? So this is the very first parameter of a retail. So then only they will be able to, match up the rental also, the services charges also, the cam charges, the maintenance charges also. Then only. So for them, the first thing is the location. Second is the residential footfall or plus an IT. So active and passive footfall both has to be there.
Okay.
Right. The third is the infrastructure. Absolutely. Fourth is the zoning of that particular project, which is very important. ऐसा नहीं हो कि एक जगह पे कैफे खोल दिया तो दूसरी जगह पे एक अपैरल आ गया, तीसरी जगह में एक वेलनेस सैलून खोल दिया तो ऐसे में कभी भी सो दिस रियली नॉट वर्क. सो यू हैव टू carefully you have to design the zoning for all the retail services, then only it will help investor and a brand to grow well.
Correct. Correct. So, and this is basically for the retails. What about the office spaces? Let's say,
See, for the office spaces, there is a very simple phenomenon. Office spaces always come for a price. Absolutely, they need to have a valuable price. MNC companies have a certain benchmark, and they have a high benchmark in terms of selecting the asset. They need to have a connectivity. They need to have good open area. They need to have a sustainable campus. They need to have a campus which is retail friendly. They need to have a campus which does not have a parking problem. They need to have that campus which is surrounded by another good players, which will suffix the culture and the environment of that campus. So that's what's the very most important aspect.
right. Going now, this could, let's, before we wrap up, this is the last question of the conversation. So, what is the future of the commercial real estate in Noida? Do we have all the good things that we can wait for, or there are going to be hiccups in the market in terms of commercial real estate? So,
See, commercials, there are, see, that's what recent in the last interview also, so the people take IT business park also as a commercial,
huge.
which they have to understand there is a little difference between a commercial retail mall and a commercial IT business mall.
Right.
Both have a different orientation.
Right.
If you go to any of a mall, you have a set parameter in your mind that you want to go with a family, then you will go for a dine-in, or you with kids, you will go to a game zone, or you want to or want to do some shopping, you can go out there with the apparel or the grocery. So you have a set parameter when you go to a commercial mall space.
Correct.
What will you do if I ask you the same question that if you are with a family, what will you do in the IT business park? You will think about it that what I need to go, why I should need to go to the IT business park.
With my,
It is only the retail where I can enjoy certain food, I can enjoy certain, various parameters of the food and cafes. The environment is completely different. The viability of a business is completely different.
Okay.
Right? So this is what. Plus, when you say a volume, and Noida is going crazy
Okay.
in terms of population, in terms of, and population is and the population is coming just because every month there is a possession of a residential flats. Delhi does not have much more spaces, becoming more crowded. Gurgaon cannot grow vertically. Horizontally, they have a limitation, but still they are managing. But Noida is something they have a lot of space at the moment.
Yes.
So the project from last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and from now, every month there is one tower of any of the project which is giving them a delivery. So the rise of population, absolutely commercial is a need base of Noida at the moment for next 5 years.
Correct, correct, correct. So this was wonderful talking to you, and I just wanted to educate our viewers as well, sir, and why it is so important to understand leasing. And this was a very good, insightful conversation. And
Thank
we
you so
will
much.
have further from here, few more from here to deep dive further in the nuances of leasing as well. But till the time, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Absolute
It's
pleasure.
really pleasure.
Absolute pleasure.
The pleasure is all mine.